2, 3. Okay, so this project came out of a desire to do something I hadn't seen before, and I've seen a couple of turned crackers, but I've never seen anyone try and build one. There's probably a reason for that. But so the prototype idea I had was to use some 1-inch dowel. This was an old curtain rail, and use a scroll saw to cut most of the way through and kind of replicate the pinch point on the cracker. And even when I was cutting these as a long piece of dowel, it was terrifying because being a round thing, it doesn't want to stay stable as you're working with it, and any time it caught in the blade, and it did a lot, it would go flying all over the place. So I made maybe 15 of these, and in the end, after I sanded them and got them to a point where they're at least smoother like that, I only had about 5. So in terms of attrition, I used up a hell of a lot of wood trying to get a twist that looked nice, and really kind of failed. So I've now resorted to going a little bit low tech. So what I'm using is salt dough, and I'm making kind of half a twist out of salt dough. I'm going to glue them together like that, and then use some pieces of dowel at either end to act as supports for the cracker body. At least that's the... So now I'm working on the second lot of veneer. The first lot was mostly light woods, very flexible woods that didn't need much in the way of soaking. I just soaked them for a couple of hours and they were fine to roll. Whereas these are, I've got some purple hearts and perdukes, quite a bit of walnut in here, and these really do not appreciate being rolled. This is the first one I attempted and it just kind of broke apart in my hands. So cold rolling, not good. So what I'm going to do is put them into my dish of water, and this is sitting on top of, if you can see that, my hot plate. So I'm going to put them in there and then bring them up to a boil for about 10-15 minutes, and that should hopefully soften the wood enough. Okay, so moving on to the next stage of this business. I've gone through my salt dough, I don't know what you're going to call them really, not exactly pyramids, piles, pinches, whatever, and I've just matched them together with a dowel in the middle. Now some of the holes didn't maintain shape during baking, or they shrunk too much so I couldn't get dowel in, which is not a problem. I've only got maybe half a dozen out of all of these that weren't usable. So anyway, I've got enough for 34-35 crackers. I'm only going to do 20, but that gives me a decent stock to look back on. What I need to do now is make something like this. So this is one of the original pinch pieces I made on the scroll saw, and essentially I've got the slope bit in the middle, but now I need to make, or at least put together, a solid circular piece which will support the rest of the cracker. So I'm not using a classic technique to level up my pinches. What I am doing is using the metal sharpening stone on my other side of my sanding machine, which I thought I would never get any use out of, but it comes in handy for this. So I'm not sure if you're going to see on the time lapse earlier, I end up putting some tape around these just to hold them together, just to keep them stable whilst the glue was reacting. And you can see the glue, being Gorilla Glue, it bubbles up and makes a mess. So I started by filing that off by hand, which is quite tedious. And the salt dough it's a ceramic, so filing it by hand is never going to happen, really, not if I'm making this many. So I thought I'd have a go with the stone, which so far seems to be working quite well. Getting nice and neat kind of cut off edges. So what I'm doing is essentially just bringing everything down to the level of the wood with the stone, and then just going over the wood and removing the finish, so that that's not going to get in the way for any gluing later on. Ooh. So that's them done, and this thing is rather warm. I think I probably should have gone for doing kind of half at a time or something. Now I've got to start cleaning up, and because I've kind of aerosolized this salt dough, I'm going to keep the breathing protection on until I'm done clearing, just in case. So yeah, works a charm, and these are ready for the next stage. So I'm just working my way back through these pieces, working on the kind of beginnings of the lamination. So I've already given these a quick wipe over just to get rid of any dust and to slightly raise the grain on the wood, so hopefully things will stick a little better. So what I've got here is main body pieces and end pieces. So I'm going for 7 centimeters wide, and the main body piece is just slightly over the circumference of the circle of the dowel, and my piece of kind of card which is going to create the lamination is about double the size. And I've got the same here with the end pieces. So what I'm going to do with the end paper is just cut these with pinking shears to create a kind of decorative edge. If you want, you can leave them straight or use some of those other scissors you can get that have decorative blades, or try and do that by hand. I wouldn't recommend trying to do that by hand. So I've got 2 end pieces and a body piece, and I just need to stick these together because it's easier to roll things on as one rather than trying to do 2 separate pieces. So I'm using double-sided because I want a kind of instant grab. If you're not doing 20 in a go, you can use kind of PV or something and let it dry, but I want this fairly quick. So I'm covering half of the tape so that I've got a sticky line that will grab as it's rolled on. So. I'm going to do one of the end pieces in this direction, lining up the bottom of the strip with the bottom of card, and I'm going to do the other one in this direction, so that when I roll them on they're all rolled in the same direction, which should make it easier to kind of actually put the whole thing together. I say should. It worked in the prototypes, it may not work now. So again, I'm just half covering the tape in a straight line across there. So, and I'm going to do the main part of the body first. So again, double-sided, I've just cut this strip in half, and I want it fairly low down and as straight as I can get it, ideally. So because the pinch isn't even, I can't really roll them on the way I really ideally want to. So I'm going to start in my hand and get it most of the way around, just like that. And then I've got this off-cut piece here. I'm just going to finish the roll as tight as I can. Ideally, you want it firm enough to hold an end piece. So I'm working my way through these and laminating the veneer on. So first of all, just roll it between my hands just to make sure the crepe paper is lying flat against the surface, and put in an offcut so I'm supporting the open end as I'm rolling. So I'm intending to make 19 of these, and I've rolled about 25 lots of veneer because I'm expecting some of these to fail. So far I'm about 7 or 8 in and I haven't had any fails yet, so touch wood, I'm not going to have any more. I'm not going to have any. So I'm rolling the various parts of these and just checking that the veneer hasn't started to crack, because that is kind of the main issue that can happen. If it starts to crack, you can just wrap some tape around it just to support it for this stage, because once it's glued on it's not going anywhere. So I'm going to apply a really quite generous layer of glue all the way around the end piece here. And you kind of do need to be very generous with this. In my prototypes I used Gorilla Glue and it just splurged everywhere. So a generous layer of a standard PVA should do you. And I'm starting with the kind of the inner edge of the roll, so it's slightly tighter and liable to sit a little better. And bring it round and just squeeze the edges together. Here you've got the glue squeezing out, which is completely fine and kind of the whole point. And then if you lift back the edge here, you've kind of developed a line where the glue stops. So just going to trim a touch more, yeah, wee touch more. So this way the two ends of veneer kind of butt together. And yes, you'll end up with sticky scissors, so be prepared to wash them when you're done. So best to cut a little too long and then have to sort it out later than cut too short and have a big gap. So squeeze those together, piece of tape just across the join, like that. And you can see here I've lined up the bottom edge, but there's a variation in the top, so that's open there so I can come back and trim. Yeah. Now before I give the actual veneer body a sanding, I'm going to go around the edges just using a nail file emery board. Don't want one that's too abrasive, just enough to kind of take the corners off and any splintery bits. And I'm using one of these because I've got fat fingers and I can't really get in without deforming the veneer. And this again puts less pressure on the veneer, so it's less likely to splinter. And I'm just going downwards, going in one direction only. Like when, well, girls might know this, but officially, or supposedly, you're only supposed to file in one direction when you're doing your nails. I've never got that, but that's kind of the way it's supposed to work, because it doesn't damage the fibres of the nail. So this is the theory, really.